Charles Cooper didn't build his financial consulting business by accident. He built it brick by brick, decision by decision, mistake-free. At 38, he managed portfolios worth millions, advising high-profile corporate clients who trusted him with numbers that could make or destroy companies overnight. Precision was his language, control was his comfort. Every morning began the same way. 6 a.m. sharp, financial reports before coffee, calendar reviewed down to the minute, no surprises. No chaos. Lauren was the opposite. 35, vibrant, magnetic, and event coordinator for mid-size and large companies across Chicago. She thrived in noise, energy, people. They'd met 7 years earlier at a business conference where she ran the event, and he delivered the keynote 2 years later. They married by Lake Michigan, an elegant ceremony under open skies. Charles believed their vows were solid, dependable, unbreakable, just like the numbers he lived by. Their Lincoln Park home reflected that belief. Spacious, tasteful, immaculate. Lauren's flair everywhere, Charles's financial discipline behind it all. On weekends, Lauren filled the house with friends, wine, laughter. Charles attended politely, smiled on cue, then slipped away early to his home office while conversations drifted on downstairs. It worked, or at least Charles thought it did. Until that Friday night in October, Lauren invited 3 friends for dinner. Charles mixed the first round of drinks, exchanged small talk about work and city events, then excused himself upstairs, claiming urgent contracts needed review. He settled into his second-floor office, spreadsheets glowing on the screen, numbers calming his mind. About an hour later, he realized his phone was still in the kitchen. He went downstairs quietly. Laughter floated from the living room. Glasses clinked. Then his name stopped him, cold, spoken differently. "Lauren, you're terrible." One friend laughed. "Those secret little getaways of yours are going to get you in trouble one day." More laughter. Charles felt something tighten in his chest. Maybe a joke, maybe a surprise. Trippy almost stepped forward. Then Brenda's voice joined in, playful but sharp. "At least you're having fun while it lasts, right? What Charles doesn't know won't hurt him." The laughter that followed wasn't innocent. It carried weight, meaning secrecy. Charles stayed frozen in the hallway, his heart hammered, but his mind, the one trained to spot patterns, was already working secret getaways. What Charles doesn't know. Lauren's laugh sounded strained, unfamiliar. He didn't enter the room. He went back upstairs, grabbed his phone, then deliberately made noise on the steps as he returned. When he entered the living room, the conversation had shifted to party decor. Easy smiles, light voices. Lauren greeted him warmly. He smiled back. But something inside him had cracked that night after the guests left, and Lauren fell asleep beside him. Charles stared at the ceiling. Secret getaways echoed in his head. He wasn't jealous, he wasn't paranoid, but he wasn't blind. Over the past months, Lauren's routines had shifted. Regular gym sessions every Tuesday and Thursday at lunch. She always came home energized. Late-night client happy hours. A weekend events conference in Indianapolis that stretched until Sunday night. Charles had encouraged all of it. Balance mattered. Independence mattered. Trust mattered. Now every memory felt heavier. Every detail demanded reanalysis. Saturday morning, Lauren left early, saying she had a client meeting. Charles waited until her car disappeared down the street. Then he went to the shared home laptop, the one they used for bills, shopping, finances. He knew the password. They'd never kept secrets, or so he believed. The browser history was wiped clean. That alone raised his pulse. She'd never done that before. He checked their shared email. Nothing. Then he remembered her personal work email. The password was still written on a sticky note she'd once left behind in a rush. He hesitated. Crossing this line meant something, but the words from the night before pushed him forward. Secret getaways. He lugged in the inbox, looked. Normal event confirmations, vendors, contracts. Then he opened the deleted folder. That's when his world tilted. Dozens of emails. One sender, nicholas.fit@mail.com. The first message stole his breath. "Can't wait for Tuesday. You know how you drive me crazy." Lauren's reply followed. "I'm counting the hours to that hotel near the airport." Noon. Charles felt hollow. He read more and more compliments. Scheduling. Explicit familiarity. "Nicholas signed off as your favorite personal trainer." Charles closed the laptop. His hands shook, but his thoughts sharpened. A personal trainer. Lauren had mentioned him casually months ago. Nicholas Torres from Elite Fitness, the same gym. Nicholas suggested a diet change. Nicholas says, "I'm making progress." All innocent at the time, all clear now. This wasn't suspicion, this was evidence. Charles didn't confront her. He didn't explode. Pain settled deep in his chest, but he stayed disciplined. He needed confirmation, proof. He searched for private investigators in Chicago and called. Midwest Investigations, Jack Donovan answered. 20 years experience, calm voice. Charles explained everything plainly. I need confirmation and photographic evidence my wife may be having an affair with her personal trainer. Jack wasn't surprised. Happens more than you think, physical proximity, endorphins, dangerous mix. He asked for dates and times. Charles had them all. Tuesdays and Thursdays noon, same hotel near O'Hare, far enough away to stay hidden. Jack paused once, then said, I'll need 48 hours. Charles hung up knowing one thing for certain. The numbers never lied. The cost would be $2,500 up front plus expenses. Charles didn't hesitate. He needed the truth, not assumptions. Monday arrived and Lauren left for work as usual, kissing Charles on the cheek and saying she had a busy day ahead. Charles went to his office, met with clients, analyzed portfolios, but his mind was split. Tuesday was worse. He knew it was the day of the supposed meeting. At 11:45 a.m., he received a text from Jack on site waiting. Charles pretended to work, but his eyes kept drifting back to his phone. 12:20 p.m., another message confirmed both entered the hotel room. 314. Charles closed his eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. Part of him still hoped he was wrong, still wished there was some innocent explanation, but he knew there wasn't. At 2:15 p.m., another message from Jack. They left separately. She went first, he followed 10 minutes later. I've got photos, can I deliver them to your office? At 6:00, Charles replied yes. The rest of the day passed in a fog. He cancelled 2 meetings, telling his assistant he wasn't feeling well. It wasn't a lie. At exactly 6, Jack Donovan showed up at Charles's office carrying a manila envelope. He was a man in his 50s, grey-haired with a neutral expression. He placed the envelope on the desk and said, I'm sorry, Mr. Cooper, it's never easy. Charles opened the envelope. Inside was a series of high-resolution printed photographs. Lauren entering the hotel in workout clothes but carrying a large bag. Nicholas Torres arriving minutes later. A man, around 30, athletic, generically handsome in a way Charles imagined appealed to many female clients. Photos of them entering the elevator together, and the worse of all, a distant shot taken through a partially open window of room 314 showing Lauren and Nicholas in an intimate embrace, her laughing, him kissing her neck. Jack had done more than just take photos. He also handed Charles a detailed report. I ran a basic background check on Nicholas Torres. He's married, Mr. Cooper. His wife's name is Melissa Torres. She's an elementary school teacher. They have a 3-year-old daughter. I thought you'd want to know. Charles looked at Jack and slowly nodded. She doesn't know. Jack shook his head. Not as far as I could tell. He's careful, uses work as the perfect alibi. Charles paid. Jack thanked him for his work and stayed alone in the office after the investigator left. He looked again at the photos one by one, forcing himself to process the reality. His wife, the woman he'd shared 7 years with, plans, dreams, a home, a life, was cheating on him with a married personal trainer, meeting for midday hotel visits while he worked to maintain their lifestyle. The pain Charles felt wasn't just emotional, it was physical, to a pressure in his chest, constant nausea. But along with the pain came something colder, more controlled anger. Not explosive or irrational anger, but the calculated anger of a man who realized he'd been made a fool. Charles wouldn't confront Lauren right away. He needed a plan, a way to turn this situation in his favor. Then he remembered the detail Jack had mentioned. Nicholas was married. Melissa Torres didn't know anything. Wednesday morning, Charles called the number for Melissa that Jack had included in the report. She answered cheerfully, probably thinking it was a parent calling about a student. Hello, Mrs. Torres. My name is Charles Cooper. You don't know me, but I need to talk to you about something important involving your husband, Nicholas. There was a pause. The cheerfulness in Melissa's voice vanished. What's this about? Charles got straight to the point. Your husband is having an affair with my wife. I have photographic evidence. I believe you have a right to know. Silence lingered on the other end for several long seconds. Then Melissa said, her voice trembling, Are you sure? Charles replied that he was absolutely certain. I can email you the photos if you'd like. But it might be better if we met in person. This is delicate, Melissa agreed, still in shock. They arranged to meet Thursday morning at a discreet cafe. When Charles met Melissa Torres, he saw a woman who looked exhausted, her eyes red as if she'd been crying all night. She held her coffee cup with both hands, as if the warmth were the only thing keeping her together. Charles showed her the photos, feeling a pang of guilt for being the bearer of such news, but also knowing It was the right thing to do. Melissa examined each photo with silent tears streaming down her face. I suspected, she whispered, but I didn't want to believe it. He always has excuses. He's always busy with clients. Charles felt empathy for her. They were both victims deceived by people they trusted. There's something else you should know, Charles said, then told her about Lauren. How she was an event coordinator with a broad network of corporate contacts. I believe your husband was using my wife to land wealthy new clients. She organized events for big companies, new executives, people with money. Nicholas is smart. He wasn't just cheating, he was building a client list through her. Melissa closed her eyes, processing. His income has increased a lot over the last few months, he said. It was because he was getting known, building a reputation, but now it makes sense. She looked at Charles with sudden resolve. What are you going to do? Charles replied calmly. I'll confront my wife tonight, and I think it would be fitting if you confronted Nicholas at the exact same time. Maybe at my house. They need to see that their actions have consequences. Melissa immediately agreed. There was a hunger for justice in her eyes that Charles recognized. Because he felt it too. They worked out the details. Charles would text Lauren saying he needed to talk about something urgent when she got home from work. Melissa would show up 30 minutes later, bringing Nicholas along under the pretense that Charles wanted to hire his services. It would be a dual confrontation, a controlled explosion. Thursday night at 7:00, Lauren came home to find Charles sitting in the living room, soft lighting, the atmosphere deceptively calm. Hi honey, you said you needed to talk about something urgent. She was still dressed for work, a pencil skirt and blouse, her hair in an elegant bun. Charles pointed to the sofa. Sid, please. Something in his tone made Lauren hesitate, but she sat, placing her bag beside her. Charles didn't waste time with preliminaries. I know about you and Nicholas Torres. The words dropped like stones into still water. Lauren instantly turned pale, mouth agape, eyes wide. Charles, what are you talking about? He picked up the envelope of photos from the coffee table and tossed it onto her lap. Don't insult me by pretending innocence. I have proof, photos, emails, schedules. I know everything. Lauren opened the envelope with trembling hands and saw the photos. Her expression cycled through shock, panic, and then something Charles hadn't expected, a feeble attempt to downplay it. She let out a forced, nervous laugh. Charles, okay, this isn't what you think. It was just fun, nothing serious. I still love you. Charles felt anger rise, like love or fun. You call betraying your husband in midday hotel rooms fun? Lauren raised her hands defensively. It was a mistake, I know, but it didn't mean anything. Just a few times, I swear. Charles stood and slowly walked until he was standing in front of her. A few times, Lauren. I read the emails. It's been months, regular meetings, messages about how much she looked forward to seeing him. Don't make me look like a fool twice. Lauren started crying, but the tears were born of desperation at being caught, not genuine remorse. Please, Charles, we can get past this. I'll end it with him right now. I'll never see him again, I promise. Just then the doorbell rang. Lauren looked toward the door, confused. Charles gave a cold smile. All right, we have company. He opened the door. Standing outside were Melissa Torres holding the hand of a small girl and Nicholas Torres, completely bewildered. Charles, you called, saying you urgently wanted to discuss personal training. Nicholas glanced at his wife and daughter, puzzled. Melissa said coolly, I insisted on coming along, a family matter that can't wait. Charles offered a humorless smile. Of course, come in. When Nicholas saw Lauren on the sofa, surrounded by scattered photos, his face went white. Melissa looked straight at him. The little girl clutched a stuffed bear. Nicholas, Melissa said firmly, I think we have something to talk about. Lauren finally understood. She'd been exposed not just to her husband, but to her lover's wife. Charles said calmly, a misunderstanding. You and my wife have been meeting in hotels for months. Your wife didn't know. My wife thought it was just fun. But I discovered something interesting. In the last 6 months, you gained 5 high-end corporate clients, all referrals from Lauren. You weren't just using my wife sexually, you were using her professionally. Melissa stared at Nicholas with disbelief. You made a fool of me, Nicholas. While I took care of our daughter, you were with her. She pointed at Lauren. The child began to cry. Melissa picked her up. Lauren lashed out. You're making a spectacle of this, Charles. How would you have handled it? More lies, he told Melissa. I'm sorry you had to learn this way, she nodded. I'd rather have painful truth than comfortable lies, she told Nicholas. We're done. Nicholas left. Now Lauren and Charles sat alone. You've ruined everything, she said. No, Charles replied. You ruined it. I just exposed it. I'm filing for divorce. The weeks that followed were lawyers, paperwork, and division. Charles kept most Us, that's the scandal, costs law and clients. Nicholas lost work. Melissa divorced him, gained custody months later. Charles rebuilt his life therapy work, new beginnings. He met Amanda at a cafe. It wasn't love, but it was hope. Betrayal didn't destroy him. It refined him. Lauren moved away. Nicholas lost everything. Truth was enough. Charles chose to move forward. Not bitter, but wiser.